Hi everybody, welcome to the studios of Equidia in Paris as we look forward to the 2017 running of the Qatar Prix de Triomphe, one of the great turf races of the thoroughbred racing season. The two ladies with me today are both going to be with me at Chantilly on Sunday afternoon. Chantilly, of course, this year is Longchamp still being rebuilt. Katherine Ford is on the English programme. Grassick will be on the French programme, but you're going to speak English now.
I'm going to make an effort to speak English today, yeah.
Good. Well, it's a very competitive year. We have a short price favourite, Katherine, but as ever, there's a lot of good horses against.
Yeah, a lot can happen. 18 runners, 13 of them have won Group 1 races, 24 Group 1 wins of Group 1s among them, so a really full and deep field. OK, so Sally, 18 of them. Let's have a look.
Yeah, really interesting field. Only two British runners this year, which is a lot less than we're used to, and 7 French horses to try and keep the title of the Arc here in France. Start off with Zerac, son of Zarkava, of course, who won this race 9 years ago for the Aga Khan with Christophe Soumillon. We also have, of course, some German runners. They won it in 2011 with Dane Dream, most recently with Jenga's Secret. Seems a really good challenger for them. 2 Japanese, not looking likely that they might want to win it this year with those ones. And Aidan O'Brien has 5 runners altogether, including Order of St George, 7th Heaven. We've Capri, the Irish Derby winner. Then the French are represented by Bramto, the French Derby winner. And we end with the 2 fillies, Enable for the Khaled Abdullah colours, and Winter, who's won so many races this year in Ireland and England.
Yep, so a great lineup. 18 of them, as we speak to you, have been declared for the race. Katherine, what type of horse do we need? We see that we have 2 very good fillies, Enable and Winter. Fillies are doing well in the race of recent years.
Very, very well recently, Ian. 5 of the last 6 winners have been fillies, notably Trev, of course, and her famous double. And we've looked at the races which lead to the Arc. The Prix Niel was a leading trial for a long time, but that race hasn't been... the winner of that race hasn't won the Arc since Rail Link back in 2006. We've got Judmont International, won by Ulysses, the King George, which was won by Enable, who's gone on to win the Yorkshire Oaks since then. Look at the ages, the 3-year-olds dominate, and the females, as I said, are getting their revenge. Leading trainer Andre Fabre, he's a three-handed this year, and then Frankie Dettori, the leading jockey in activity, who's riding. He has 4 wins, and he's obviously going to be riding Enable.
He is. So let's split them up by country to begin with. Only the 2 British challengers this year. So only 2 Brits, but they are likely to be the first and second favourites. Enable is the standout horse in thoroughbred racing in Europe this summer. She's won her last 4 Group 1 contests. Sally, we're going to have a look at one of those. Not only has she won a lot of Group 1 races, but when she does win, she wins them by a very long way.
She's very impressive. This daughter of Nathaniel, and she's really put herself on the map this year. You can see her winning here, beating Ulysses and Idaho, who she'll meet again on Sunday in the Arc. Really, really impressive. The ground shouldn't be a huge worry for her. She has run in terrible weather, but the rain hadn't really got into the ground on that time. I was talking to Teddy Grimthorpe, Khaled Abdullah's manager, yesterday, and he wasn't too concerned about the ground for her. She has had a hard campaign, 6 wins this year, but they don't seem to think that that's going to affect her either. And I know I was working at the Irish Oaks when she won that day, and Olivier Pellier finished behind her, and he walked in afterwards and he turned to me and said, the way she went by me, she'll win the Arc. And I would trust Olivier Pellier's opinion over what horse would win the Arc. OK, Olivier Pellier has 4 wins in the race, so does Frankie Dettori. They won, I think it's 6 or 7 jockeys, now tied on 4. So Frankie, a victory for him could see him as the most successful rider in the history of the race. Let's hear, though, from Enable's trainer, who is John Gosden.
Well, we've been pleased with her. I'm very conscious of the fact that, obviously, her preparations for the season started in February. Into work, fast work in March, and she's raced in April, May, June, twice in July, August, and we're in September now, and the race is October the 1st. In her case, we went from the Oaks at Epsom to the Oaks at the Curragh, but the big question was then whether we came back to run in the King George. But within 5 days, she was out on this ring, bucking, playing, very full of herself, so we saw no reason not to. And then again, when she won the King George, the Yorkshire Oaks was there if we wished to run. And she gave all the messages that she was looking forward to racing again. She's got got a remarkable constitution. She's very businesslike when she races. She's a sweet filly around the place, very sensible and but playful, as I say. But when she's racing, she just gets straight into the zone and races. And in terms of how she changed, she's actually got bigger and stronger, and she's weighing heavier now than she did earlier in the season.
Enables trainer John Gosden talking about her chances. Katherine, you did that interview. Is he confident?
Yeah, I found him to be really reassuring about the one question mark, I think, which we can have over Enable, which is that she hasn't had this break during the year. But he was saying that she gets so fresh between her races if she doesn't run. He even said that she dropped to Frankie Dettori one day. You know, he seems to think that she's been asking for the races, and it's also reassuring to hear him say that she's got stronger and that he really finds her at her top level at the moment.
OK, so that is the favourite Enable. There are 17 who could possibly beat her. Let's start off with Ulysses, who's the other raider from the United Kingdom, trained by Sir Michael Stout. We're going to see him in action. You will have already seen him. In fact, he was runner-up to Enable at Ascot 2 starts ago. But Sallyan, since then, he has won in very good style over shorter. This was a 2,200 metres, or 2150 or so at York.
In the Juddmonte International Stakes, a Group 1 level this race, where he beats the very popular Churchill and Barney Roy in the Godolphin colours, who finishes third. Close enough finish between the second and third, but he goes away easily and beats them. He's a horse that's never really been overestimated all year long. He's been kind of below the radar. People don't really give him the credit that he deserves. He's never been, you know, a real favourite with the crowds, but I know the Niarchos family are really fond of him and they think he has a really strong chance going into this race.
He sure does. Let's hear from his trainer now as well. Sir Michael Stout has had his 4-year-old this horse, and he's always been a very decent horse, as Sir Michael reflects on.
Well, he was quite smart last year. When he was 4th in the Breeders' Cup, he was, you know, the 3 best turf horses in the world were 1, 2 and 3. So he ran very creditably there. But he's continued to improve. He had been lightly raced, and he's grown up in every way, and he's just much more professional now, and therefore I think he's, you know, showing more talent as a result of that. Well, we haven't done too much with him. Yesterday morning, he worked over 7 furlongs, and he pleased us. So he seems in good shape. His weight is good. We're happy. Well, he's obviously very good at 10, but I think he's also good at 12, because the King George was run in really austere conditions, and you know, he beat all the others pretty convincingly. He won a Gordon last year. He gets a 1.5 miles, no problem.
So, Michael, they're talking 10 and 12 as furlongs, or 2,024 100 metres. Katherine, you got a lot of words out of Sir Michael. He's normally quite shy.
Yeah, I dug quite hard to get those words. But yeah, I was asking him, what struck me about his profile of Ulysses was that his 2 big wins have been over the 10 furlongs, the 2,000 metres. But he's obviously bred to be a 1.5 mile horse. He's by Galileo out of the Oaks winner Light Shift. So his pedigree says 2,400 metres all over it. But just his best performance has been over 2,000. So Michael Stout seemed to think that it's not a problem. He's pretty versatile with both of them. He did say that it'll be tough to get the 4.5 lengths back on Enable, which she beat him in the King George, but he's not going to be running scared of one horse. OK, that is the 2 Brits, Enable and Ulysses. But, needless to say, numerically, the biggest number are the French defenders. And with those, we're going to start with number 1 on the race card. Katherine, this is Zarak. He's trained by Alain de Roy for the Aga Khan. We're going to see him in action against a few of his rivals today. This is the last time he ran. Doa Dream is the one who's going to come down in the skirmishing here. But Zarak comes up on the outside. This is his first run at the Arc Trip. Exactly, the first run at the Arc Trip, his first Group 1 win. He's a horse who's obviously been very highly thought of. He's the son of Zarkava, who won the Arc back in 2008, so it's a wonderful story if he could go on. And he ran out a brave winner of this. He's beating Silver Wave, who he'll meet again in the Arc. Silver Wave will be an outsider on Sunday. He's been, well, I think we can nearly say he's been a revelation over this 1.5 mile trip. OK, that is his victory in the Grand Prix de Saint-Cloud. Let's hear from his trainer, Alain de Roy.
Depuis 15 jours, on est vraiment conscient que...
Over the past 2 weeks, Zarak has reached peak condition.
Il a toujours eu tendance à s'arrêter quand il...
He's always had a tendency to stop when he reaches the front, and that's why in his final piece of work, once he'd passed his leader, who's a decent horse, he had a second horse behind him to ensure that he kept going to the end of his gallop. Zarak is more at ease over a mile and a half because he has the impression that he's in control all the way. There's no doubt that he stays the trip.
And you could see his owner, the Aga Khan, was there to see him work the other day. He might be the dark horse of the race. It was certainly pretty dark when he was working there. Sally, he appears, from what Alan de Roy de Prez says, as a horse that has taken a little bit of working out.
Yeah, there's a very interesting article in the Racing Post written by Scott Burton this week, an interview with Christophe Soumillon about his win with Zarkava and comparing Zarkava and her son Zarak. And he says he's quite a nervous, anxious horse, that he's quite different from his dam, who was very serious and professional in her races. So it's taken a bit of time for them to kind of get used to him and get to know him properly, and they felt he had to be thrown in because of his breeding. He was thrown into a higher level quite early, and it's taken them a little bit of time to find the knack to him. But he thinks that this trip, he said he was caught out by him early on. He thought he should be a miler, and it's only recently he's actually come to terms and agreed that he can stay this trip and this is his best distance. So it's an interesting horse. He doesn't have the same... She had two kind of accelerations, Zarkava does. He doesn't have the same, and as Alan de Roy Dupré says, he does have a tendency to stop in front, which can give kind of bad impression of his personality.
Christophe will have to challenge late then. OK, Andre Fabre's won more arcs than anybody else. He has Cloth of Stars. We're going to have a look at this horse winning over shorter, 2,100 metres in the Prix Gannet earlier in the season, Katherine, where he does have Zarak behind him.
Yeah, exactly. This was his first Group 1 win for Cloth of Stars. He's going to beat Zarak, who's going to be a late and fast finisher in this race. He's a horse that's always been knocking on the door in top-level competition. He's a son of See the Stars, of course, who won this race back in 2009. And here we see Zarak coming with a strong run. Silver Waves back there again, but there's Cloth of Stars, who is, you know, he sticks on well to his task. I think he's a really interesting candidate. He's had a long break after this race and was brought back in the Prix just recently.
OK, he ran second in that. You can see, having watched that, why they decided eventually to put Zarak up to the 2,400 metres. A little bit now of form from Chantilly in the French Derby, Prix du Jockey Club winner Bramto. He won that back in June. He's trained by Jean-Claude Rouget. So, Céline, let's have a look at his victory. This is one of the 3-year-olds, because so far we've only talked about older colts.
Yeah, the French Derby winner under Christian Demure. You see him, he'll come from right at the very back. This horse is nerve-wracking, to say the least, to watch in a race. The one and only time that Christian Demure got him to jump out fast and go with the pace, he then couldn't hold him and the horse threw away his chance. So he's learned how to ride him, that you have to jump him out, sit at the back and come late. It all depends on luck and running. There will be 17 other horses coming up the track. It is a nice wide track in Chantilly, but there can be lots of problems that could happen in the way. It's a lot to ask for it all to fall right for him again. And it's been no secret that Jean-Claude Rouget's horses suffered from the virus last winter. It's taken them time. We saw, you know, this summer that he hadn't come back 100%. See this gallop that he did under Christian Demure in Deauville, where the horse has been based. He hasn't gone back down to Pau. He's stayed in Deauville since. He's looking much more his racing form than when I saw him earlier in the summer back in July. He still looked quite heavy and didn't look like the horse that had won the Jockey Club. But he's given the yard a lot of hope, and I think they'll be really enthusiastic to see him run a big race on Sunday. But it's a lot to ask with his style of racing.
And a first trial over the 1.5 miles as well.
Yep, so Bramto, question marks for him. Let's race through a few of the other home challengers. Katherine, 1 foot in heaven. Well, he finished 6th in the race 12 months ago. Yeah,
exactly. He's a horse that shouldn't be totally ruled out. I think he can finish kind of in the first 8 or so. As you say, he ran well last year. He finished a decent second in his trial. He'd been off since May, finished second in the Coupe at Maison Lafitte, and so they're going to try and see if they can pick up a bit of prize money, and then they're aiming for an international campaign at the end of the season, back to Hong Kong probably.
Silver Wave, Sally, 13th last year. Good horse, wins races, but only 13th last year.
Yeah, 13th last year kind of sums it up for him. He's been running consistently. He has had numerous places. We've seen him in a lot of the reference races that we've looked at for Zarak and other horses. He's finishing placed behind them, but he has an awful lot to do to make up to make up distance on those horses, and I don't think it's possible.
OK, Katherine, we've seen Dare a Dream on film already, not finishing in a race, but he's run twice since and finished second both times.
Yeah, let's hope he does better than that. He's a horse who keeps... he's been campaigned over a long distance. He's been beaten this year by Tiberin, who's going to be the big French hope in the Melbourne Cup. He won an Arc weekend last year, the Group 2 Prix Chaudonnay over the longer distance. I think he'll really struggle over the Mount Classic distance. And
the last French one, Sally, Plumatic. André Fabre ran him in the Jockey of the French Derby after only 2 runs. He did come last in that, but he has narrowly been beaten in 1 race since.
Yeah, I'm always reluctant to completely rule out an André Fabre horse. We know what he's capable of, but yeah, he was an inexperienced horse when he disappointed in the French Derby. He's a son of Plumania, who is a very talented race mare for the Wertheimer brothers, whose colours Plumatic runs in, and then second beaten a nose by Recoletos, who also ran in the French Derby since. He'll need to really step up to get to this level.
Yeah, second in the Prix de Prince d'Orange, which alleged won, but I mean, that was 30-odd years ago before he won the Arc. Now, on to Ireland and mainly Aidan O'Brien's runners. Having had 7 possibles at the early declaration stage, Aidan O'Brien has narrowed it down to 5. Sally. So let's start with one of those. Order of St George, a very decent stare people think of him of, but he was third in this race over today's course and distance 12 months ago.
I think the most interesting thing about Aidan O'Brien's runners have been the jockey choices, the jockey bookings for Sunday. So Donnacha O'Brien, Aidan's son, takes the ride. Frankie Dettori was on him last year when he was third. You can see him on the rail. He kind of gets bumped. He doesn't have the easiest of passages. Really brave game horse. It's the reason why I think he could finish place again this year. He never says die. He's always there giving his best. He won at the Curragh most recently when Ryan Moore was riding him. That was Group 1 level. I think he's got every chance to be there with a place, even if he might not have the class to win an Arc. OK, and the thing that will help him is it looks like it will be substantially slower and softer ground this year. Next one of Aidan's, Katherine, Capri, or Capri if you're of Italian descent. 2 Group 1s, 2 classics, the Irish Derby and the English St Leger. Yeah, he's a really classy horse, this horse. He's a son of Galileo, of course, as so many of Aidan O'Brien's are. We see him here running in the Irish Derby. He beats Cracksman in this race. Cracksman, who would have been a leading hope had John Gosden decided to line him up in the Arc. But Capri, he's a really attractive horse, and then he showed his courage once again last month, winning the St Leger at Doncaster. So he's really one to take very, very seriously. He's kind of flying slightly under the radar because he maybe wasn't a confirmed runner until late, but definitely one to watch out for, I think. OK, now one who wasn't a confirmed runner, in fact probably wasn't by most people thought as a possible runner till late on, Sally, was Winter, 3-year-old filly. She'll go into this now as the selection of the stable rider Ryan Moore. That's the most interesting, I think, is that Ryan Moore has chosen Winter in this race. He hasn't ridden her in all of her races this year. Wayne Lorden rode her early on. The ground is a question for her. I know they said when I was at home in Ireland this week that if it rained considerably before Sunday, she wouldn't run. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Another grey horse by Galileo for Aidan O'Brien this year after Capri. She's been really impressive. The only question for me is, well, there's a couple of questions. The ground is one if it rains a lot. The trip, you know, she hasn't run over this distance yet, and with the ground being a question for her as well, and she has no experience of running against colts. Although she does get an allowance as a 3-year-old filly, it's still a big step up for her. It's certainly sporting and fascinating to see the 2 big 3-year-old fillies of the year in Nable and Winter meet in this year's Qatar Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. Quickly, 2 other Aidan ones. Idaho, he's I don't think he's won a Group 1 yet, Katherine, but he's won some very good group races. Yeah, a couple of decent Group 2s, the Hardwick at Royal Ascot and the Great Voltage last year before he came down in the St Leger last year. He's a 4-year-old full brother to Highland Reel, who was in the lineup for a long time before not being declared. Highland Reel has 7 Group 1s. Idaho is looking for his first. I'm not sure that it's going to be in the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. OK, and Seventh Heaven, who is a classic winner, Sally Ann. Unfortunately, her most recent piece of form is 9th of
9, but she had run 2 very good races in the spring this year.
Yeah, she was coming back from a bit of a break when she was disappointing last time out. That was over 2,000 metres, over 10 furlongs on soft ground, so that's a little bit of a concern. She has run over 2,400 metres in the past. She beat One Foot in Heaven the time before. She'll be ridden by Pat Smullen, which has to be an advantage as well. I think that's a really strong booking for her, and one of only 3 fillies in the race, and the only older filly.
OK, that is Seventh Heaven. That wraps up the Aidan O'Brien contenders. We're going to move across the border from France now to 2 interesting horses who definitely have some sort of chance as we move on to the challengers from Germany. The first of which, and the shortest price in the anti-post betting market, is Genghis Secret. Katherine, not many people had heard of this horse until last time out, which was one of the Arc Trials at Chantilly.
No, well, he doesn't really have the name of a champion, I'm afraid, Genghis Secret, but he had actually shown some pretty decent form before this win in the Prix. We see him here. He's going to beat Satono Diamond. And Silver Wave, who's also there once again, and then we also have Cloth of Stars, who runs an eye-catching race in this Prix. But Genghis Secret, he was a Group 1 winner already in Germany. He won the Grosser Preis von Berlin, beating Hawkbill, who won the Eclipse Stakes, I believe, last year for Godolphin. He has some pretty decent form. Only one disappointment this year. That was at Baden-Baden back in May. I've been speaking to a few of our German specialists, our German commentators here at Equidia, and they've been telling me that maybe he's not suited by the left-handed track at Baden-Baden, and also Marcus Klug, his stable wasn't really in form at this time of the year, but his last 3 races have been a win. His trainer Marcus Klug, he's based near Cologne, he's 3rd in the German standings at the moment, and he won a Group 1 just last weekend back in Germany, so watch out, especially if the announced rain does come. OK,
which it looks like the latest forecast is, and a lot of it. Iquitos is the other one from Germany, Salian. He's already a winner at the top level.
Yeah, he's a big price for the race on Sunday. He's a winner at the top level. He's had great travels all around. He's been to Japan and everything. His connections are having a really enjoyable time of travelling around thanks to this horse. He could be, you know, there could be another German winner after we haven't had one since Daydream in 2011, but I struggle to see him beating some of the horses, the top-class horses we've mentioned here. OK, and he has 3 lengths, or a little bit more than 3 lengths, to make up on Genghis Secret the last time the pair of them met in Germany. So that is the 2 raiders from Germany, and now every year we talk about them because they're still trying to win their first Arc de Triomphe. It's up to the Far East, and the 2 that come from Japan. So the Japanese raiders, they've looked like they are going to win this in the past. They probably have the shortest priced favourite in the history of the race. But, Katherine, they're still looking to win it. They're this year, Satono Diamond. You're going to show him to us in his best form.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to show him on his best dates in the Ara McKinnon, which is the Japanese version of the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. It's traditionally run on Christmas Day, and he's going to get up to win this race, beating Kitasan Black, who was thought of for the Arc de Triomphe for a while, but Kitasan Black, he won the Japan Cup a month before this race. And there, look at this acceleration in the final strides with Satono Diamond and Christophe Lemaire, but that's obviously on very fast ground, which is a major factor for this horse. We were at Chantilly earlier in the week and seeing him on the training tracks there. It's gonna be a bit of a struggle for him. This horse, he's a top-class horse in Japan. He was beaten a nose in the Derby last year. He's won the Japanese St. Leger last year. He stays, but he doesn't like the soft ground. OK, and that would obviously be a pretty major factor. His rider's going to be Christophe Lemaire. Let's hear what he said about the horse earlier in the week.
I hope that we'll see the Satono Diamond that we know in Japan, but for the moment he'll need to show more than he showed in the Prix. This year we'll be lining up in the hope of picking up a place rather than being confident for a win. The horse looks really well. Physically, he's reaching his top level. The Les Aigles track was quite soft for his gallop, and he really had trouble in picking up and accelerating on this surface, so I wasn't totally satisfied. I just hope that on Sunday he'll be able to show what he's capable of.
J'espère que dimanche, il me fera plaisir en montrant vraiment ce qu'il sait faire.
Christophe Lemaire talking about Santoro Diamond, not bursting with confidence, girls, I didn't think.
No, he was really struggling to act on that soft ground. I think this 22nd attempt for the Japanese is not going to be the one that they're waiting for.
It's the sort of time when you say like
I'm usually the biggest fan of the Japanese as well.
That means it's going to win at 33s. The other one in the lineup of the 18 is Santoro Noblesse, who is Santoro Diamond's pacemaker, who briefly looked like he might have beaten him home last time. OK, ladies, conclusion time. What are you going to go for?
Well, I think it's going to be I think it's impossible to go against the favourite Enable. She's shown everything, distance. She's ridden by Frankie Dettori, which in a tactical big field race, he's probably the one that we can count on to get out of trouble. So I'm going to go with Enable, then the German Hope, Genghis Secret, and Cloth of Stars.
Sally Ann.
Well, I agree with Katherine for the winner anyway. I think Enable has impressed me so many times this year. I struggle to find anything to go against her in those conditions. And we had a 1-2-3 for Aidan O'Brien last year. I think he could do the places this year. I really like Order of St George and the way he battled out last year. And Capri, the Irish Derby winner, hasn't put a foot wrong since. So they're my second and third pick.
OK, they forced me into making selections as well. And as you can tell by the number of grey hairs I have, I've given up backing odds-on chances. So Enable is not for me. I'm going for a French victory for Zarak, only that one run over this trip. And two of Aidan O'Brien's behind him. Order of St George, lovely staying horse, placed last year, ground to be even better, I would guess, for him this year. And the Irish Derby and St Leger winner, Capri, to be home there as well. Ladies, I hope it doesn't rain too much for you, because you two are outside on Sunday afternoon, aren't you?
I'm under the tent presenting.
OK, you're outside.
I'm outside the whole day, yeah.
Good luck. Your host broadcaster will tell you what time in your country you can watch this year's running of the Qatar Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. Thank you very much for watching our preview programme, and the best of luck for the one that you decide to put your money on. Bye-bye.